How was your week?
Okay. Sorry,
Oh,
what
my
you
goodness.
guys don't know is things started going crazy.
The recording button was going insane. So
Spazzing out. And
yeah.
Ellen's like, I don't think that's supposed to do that.
Yeah.
I'm like, no, I don't think so either.
Yeah. That was a
So-
motorcycle, guys. If you heard
Okay.
Okay.
In answer to your question, my husband's grandfather has been slowly declining over the past 2 years. And this past week, his mom called us and told us that he wasn't doing well and his health, he was declining pretty quickly. And that we should probably come see him. And so we went on Friday, and when we went into his room and I saw him, I mean, all of us went in, Jason, me, the kids. Anyway, when I went in there and I saw him, I knew immediately that his time was very close.
Yeah.
Because I had seen my grandmother die.
Yeah.
And it was very similar. Like he looked very similar, was breathing the same way, like pretty much asleep every now and then would wake up and reach for things and reach for people.
Yeah.
And so we stayed most of Friday, and then we went back to my in-laws and slept there. And then we came back on Saturday morning and spent the morning with him, singing hymns, reading scripture over him, praying for him. I had a special moment with him where he grabbed my hand and squeezed it. And I was like, hey, Papa, Cathy's here.
Yeah.
You can go be with Jesus.
Yeah.
And so we all got to say our goodbyes and say, we're here. We love you. We're going to take care of Nana. And then we went to the main hall area where everyone hangs out and plays games and does puzzles. And so we spent that time with Jason's Nana, who is also staying and living in this nursing home now. Okay. We played games with her and her friends and had lunch with them and visited with them. And I would say about 12:45, as my family and I were packing up all of our things, getting ready to leave to head back to Houston, my husband's uncle came and said, hey, y'all need to come to the room. The nurse thinks it's soon because his breathing had stopped. And so we went to the room, and as soon as we got there, we hadn't seen, it had been probably an hour since I had seen him. He was super pale. And I'm like, oh yes, this is soon, very, very soon. And his breathing was hardly there. We were there long enough for him to take 4 breaths, and then he passed. And we all cried. We all sang Amazing Grace. We all just were sharing the amazing memories of what a wonderful grandfather he was and how we're going to miss him.
Yeah.
So it was a special time. And it was kind of cool. I mean, bittersweet in that we got to be there. I mean, we almost were gone. But we were there for his last breath. And then we came back to Houston and went looking at houses. So
you had a full week.
Very much so. In fact, y'all, we have put in an offer on a house.
It's 50 minutes from my house.
I know. I'm so sorry.
She sent me pictures, and it happened to be attached to the address. And as I'm coming here, I don't know about y'all's Apple phone. Like, for some reason, it thinks it knows where I want to go. And it pulled up the address that they were looking at. And I'm like, 50 minutes?
I know. So, it's, we have a verbal agreement. So nothing is set in stone. So I'm trying to just trust the Lord and walk by faith. And if this is meant to be, it's going to happen. And we're supposed to get a written agreement today, or this evening.
Okay.
And it's not happened yet. So I'm wondering if they're holding out to see if they get a better offer.
Yeah.
Which I don't feel like they're going to get a better offer than what we have to offer.
Yeah.
So we'll see.
Okay.
I love the house though so
Yeah,
much.
it's oh my gosh, y'all, it is gorgeous. I was looking at the pictures and I'm like, how can you not love this house?
I
It's
know.
gorgeous.
Well, and I told Ellen, if this ends up being the house we get, above the garage, I think a lot of homes in this neighborhood were
Mhm.
designed this way back when they were built. But above the garage, there's a 20 by 20 room
Mhm.
with a half bath. It definitely needs updated, and Jason's
Yeah.
already said that's gonna be my project for the next year. If we get this house,
Yeah.
he's gonna update it, and it's gonna be the studio/podcast recording
Mhm.
room. So I'm like, "Ellen, we've
I
got a
know.
place."
Yeah. I mean, we have a place
So,
now, but,
yes,
but
but
I
this
totally
will
get
be
it.
way bigger
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
better.
Yeah.
But we'll see.
I'm
We'll see what
excited. We'll
happens.
find out.
Anyway, all that to say that's my week. So,
Yeah.
all right. Well, let's jump into our podcast and
Mhm.
hope that this thing doesn't spaz out on us.
Yeah.
Um,
So
as I
excuse us if we keep constantly looking over here because just making sure that it's not spazzing out. But
yes.
anyways,
As I said at the beginning of the podcast, we have started a new series, or maybe I didn't say
excuse
it.
me.
I know I did last week. We have starting a new series on marriage, and I think we're gonna start off by talking about the engagement period
Mhm.
first, and then we have an episode where we share with you all on how we met our spouses and
Mhm.
they've graciously agreed, our husbands have agreed to come on and share their perspective of how they
Yeah.
think we met, and
So
so
that will be an interesting podcast because you will get to meet our husbands.
yay. So, it's gonna be fun, I'm looking forward to it, but
Mhm.
today, we're gonna talk about the engagement period. So, I
Yes.
have a few questions that I'm just gonna ask Ellen, and then she and I are just gonna talk and converse, and
Yeah.
she'll ask me and
Yep.
all of
Yep.
those things.
Yep.
So, Ellen,
Mhm.
where were you living when you were engaged?
Okay.
And were you and Chad living in the same state during your engagement period?
Ooh. Okay. So we were living in Houston,
Okay.
both born and raised here. Um. So Chad's parents had actually my father-in-law got a job as the lawyer that he was a paralegal before he retired, and then he got into accounting and then he retired. But he worked for um one of their really close family friends. He was a lawyer. He was his paralegal, and their friend had gotten he got a job offer in Phoenix.
Okay.
So Chad's family moved to Phoenix. Chad had already graduated from high school and he told his parents that he wanted to stay here.
Okay.
He wanted to be close to me and he wanted to still continue to live here in Houston. So he got an apartment of his own and he got a job, full-time job. So we had already been dating for like 4 years because we are high school sweethearts. So, um, when Chad actually proposed to me, he proposed to me, and then it was decided because he had a kind of a rough time the year that he was here by himself.
Mhm.
And he wanted, we were at that point in our relationship. I was had started school and we were kind of at that point where it was like, yeah, I think we're gonna get married, so he had to make the decision like, if I stay here, what kind of life are we going to have? So, my whole family's here. And he did made the decision that he was going to move out to Phoenix and be with his parents. But before he did that, he would propose to me. And he ended up getting a job out there, a really good job. And he lived with his parents while we were engaged. And I lived here.
Wow.
Yeah. The whole year we were engaged, we were living in separate states.
Wow.
Yes,
That's
yes.
amazing
Yeah,
and
and
hard.
very difficult. Very
Mhm.
difficult
Mhm.
because remember, I told you about how strict my parents were. My parents would not allow me to fly out there.
Wow.
Even after he had proposed to me and he said I said yes. Just even, planning the wedding, even planning where we were going to live, looking at apartments. My parents would not let me go. And so I think one of the questions there later on is, well, I'll talk about this later. So that kind of caused a little bit of friction while we were engaged because he had to take the time to fly out here
Mhm.
to see me. And then
Mhm.
we did as much um planning as we could while he was here. And then old days now, telephone, long distance phone calls. And
Are not cheap.
no, okay, listen. So Chad was a file clerk and he had to work the switchboard. He would do the switchboard so that the lady could go on lunch and he would break her for lunch. So I called him on the switchboard, the 800 number, while he was on the switchboard every day at his lunch because it was free.
That's funny.
Okay, I told you old school. And we wrote letters. We
Oh,
sent
bless
letters
your
back. I
heart. You're
know.
old.
I know.
You're
No
old.
phone, nothing. No FaceTime, nothing. I know. Look, she's laughing at me, y'all. I mean, I told
That's so funny.
yes. Long distance phone calls were so expensive. And this was back in the day. Okay, I'm dating myself, where you could buy a phone card for a certain amount of money.
I know exactly what you're talking about. That's
And
fantastic.
yeah, and so you use the phone card and you paid a certain amount and then that's what you would use. But long distance phone calls were expensive.
Yeah.
And in fact, while we were engaged, my parents were like, y'all are on the phone a lot. And I'm like, well, y'all won't let me fly out there to see him. So how
Yeah.
would, yeah. So
That's
anyways,
funny.
yeah. What about you?
Well, when Jason and I got engaged, we were also living in separate states, but not for long.
Okay.
I was in Southern Illinois going to college at a university called Southern Illinois University.
Okay.
And he was going to a university in Jackson, Tennessee called Union University. It's a Southern Baptist
Okay.
university. It was about a 6-hour drive
Okay.
for
6-hour
us.
drive. Okay.
So when we were for the first 2 years, really actually the first year and a half of college
Mm-hmm.
is when we were not living in the same state or city. We would drive pretty much every weekend.
Ooh,
We would take
wow.
turns.
Wow.
And it got to the point where like, this is silly.
Yeah.
Like, why don't we just talk to our parents about getting engaged?
Yeah.
But because we were so young,
Yeah.
Jason was 18 when he proposed to me and I was 20.
Okay. Well, same age as Chad and I.
So,
Yeah.
My
get
dad
it.
was worried that, Jason's young. He doesn't have like a solid job.
Yeah. Yeah.
But Jason made it super clear to my dad when he asked my dad's permission, like, I'm going to provide for her. I promise you she will be taking,
Yeah.
because at that point
Yeah.
we were so tired and exhausted from the constant back and forth.
That 6-hour drive.
Like our
rough.
academic, like we weren't struggling. We were doing fine. We were doing A's and B's, but it was hard.
Yeah.
Like hard, long days. And so, we came to our parents with the approach of, look, I think it's going to be better for
Yeah.
like a lot of reasons.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so, yeah, I was in Illinois and he was in Tennessee when we
Okay.
were engaged for only 2 months though, because
Oh.
then, in January, so we got engaged in November and in January, he transferred to the university that I was going to be at because we knew that there was no way we could pay for the both of us to go to Union because it's a
Okay.
private school,
Yeah.
private funding, all of that.
Yeah.
Whereas at a state university, I was already pretty much getting paid to go to the university there.
Okay.
So he transferred, which worked out to be good anyway because what he wanted to do was radio and television. And at the time, I don't know if this is still true, but at the time that he was going to school for that, the college that we went to had one of the best programs in the
Oh,
nation.
okay. I did not know
I
that.
don't know if that's still true, but at that point,
Okay.
it was a solid program.
Hmm.
So,
Okay.
yes, for only 2 months.
Okay. Oh, yeah, it was a
I
year for us, and it was hard.
can imagine.
Yeah.
Mm,
Ooh.
mm, mm, mm.
Mm.
Okay, so how long were you engaged for?
A year.
A year.
Mhm.
Right? Exactly a year, or a little less, or a little
So,
more?
maybe a year and a month, because I think he
Okay.
proposed to me in June,
Okay.
and then we got married the following year in July.
Okay.
Yeah. So, like, really, maybe a year and a couple of weeks,
Yeah.
something like that. What about you?
So, real talk.
Yeah. Oh, real talk. Uh-oh.
And this is where the the juicy. No, I'm just kidding. So we were engaged in November,
Mhm.
and my dream wedding was to have a wedding at Christmas because Jason and I both love Christmas.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, but I would say about March probably.
Mhm.
It became very clear to both he and I and our parents. You probably need to move your wedding up.
Yeah. Yeah. It's
Here's the thing.
hard.
Jason and I are both we are physical people. Like
Yeah.
we thrive on physical touch. Hugs,
Yeah.
loves, cuddles,
Yeah.
those kinds of things.
Yeah.
Well, I'm sure you can agree
Yeah.
from us anyway, when as soon as we got engaged, it
Mhm.
was crazy, Ellen. It was like in my mind, it was like this switch went off of
Yeah.
it was like the enemy's like, okay, you're basically married. So
Yeah.
because you're basically married, you can do all of these things.
Yeah.
And so we fought so hard against sexual temptation.
Yeah.
I mean, hard. The
Yeah.
hardest we've ever had to fight. And you have to understand, prior to our engagement, there was a short season in our dating. We dated for about 2 years, I
Mhm.
think. There was a season in there where we where there was a hard season, let's just say that, where
Okay.
we actually had to like put things on hold,
Mhm.
and had to. I wouldn't say we like broke up and separated, but
Mm.
we spoke to our parents, and it was decided like, hey, I think y'all need time and space,
Mm.
and I think you need to spend some serious time with the Lord, thinking about how you want to best honor Him in your relationship.
Yeah.
And so when I say that to say we had already struggled with some sexual temptation
Yeah.
and had to fight hard against that.
Yeah.
And so that was pre-engagement, and then
Oh.
engagement just ramped it up. And I'm
Mhm.
like, yeah, you mom and dad and Jason's parents, y'all are right. Like
Yeah.
we can't wait till December.
Yeah.
So we moved the wedding up to June. So we were only engaged from November to June. What is that? 7 months?
Yeah. So you were engaged in November,
Mm-hmm.
and then you actually wanted to get married the following December, but moved
Yes.
it up to March.
Yes.
Gotcha.
Well, we moved it up to June, actually, not
June.
March. And
Okay.
March is when it became clear we can't be
You're right.
engaged much longer.
Right. Okay. Gotcha. And you got married. Oh, I know when you got married. Never mind.
Oh, only your husband.
Yeah.
I will never forget my wedding date ever because
Yeah.
of Mr. Chad. I won't
Yeah.
go into.
Yeah. I know. Oh my
Okay.
goodness.
This is the part that I'm excited about.
Yeah.
Because this is the part where Ellen gets to share her embarrassing story.
Yes.
Okay,
You
so
said.
tell me, Ellen, how
Mhm.
did Chad propose to you?
Okay. So my dear husband. So he's living by himself. And so, as you can see, when you're living by yourself, you have to scrimp and save your money for different
Yeah.
things. And so, when he proposed to me, one of our favorite places to go was in the Galleria area here in Houston. It's a gorgeous place. And back in the day, there was, and it's still there, it's this water wall.
Mhm.
I think it's called Williams Trace. I don't remember now. Golly. But it was a little park area before they kind of put cement down and kind of made it a little bit more. But a lot of people would go there for picnics and stuff and just kind of hang out, take pictures by the water wall. And there was this little pond over there, and we had a little picnic. And then, uh, if I recall, he took the ring out of his pocket
Mhm.
and was like, I don't even remember exactly what he said, but he basically was like, "Will you marry me?"
Mm.
Opens up the box, the ring box, and I'm just, I'm stupid. I'm just gonna say that I'm stupid and I'm insensitive. I look at it, and I mean, it's a now when I think back to it, I'm like, it was a pretty diamond. It was pretty, but when
Yeah.
he put it on my finger, the first thing that just automatically came out of my mouth was, "It's kind of small." And I was just like, "Did that just really come out of my mouth?" Oh my god. I'm to this day, I'm like, "I don't know why you didn't just throw me in the pond, seriously, because that was like I'm like, "You still married me after I said that?"
Mm.
Um, but so he tells me, like, maybe it's like a year later after we were married, because "I just want you to know." What in the
What
world?
is
I
happening?
don't know. It's that motorcycle again, the same motorcycle that came by. Um, he goes, I sold my Mickey Mantle baseball, signed Mickey Mantle baseball to get you that engagement ring. And 2 months later, he died. So you know how much that, that baseball was really worth? 2 months after he sold it to buy my engagement
Ouch,
ring.
Ellen, ouch. Like
I know. It hurts me to even tell this story. I'm like,
and you'll have to know Chad loves baseball.
yes,
So that was that's the best ring you could possibly
I
get.
know. I know. I just was like, and he never, I mean, like, for the first couple of years, like, that would be kind of a sting. He'd be like, I sold my Mickey Mantle baseball for that ring, that engagement ring. And so, yeah,
It's funny the things we say when we're young and
yeah,
stupid.
stupid. Yes,
Oh,
stupid.
I've been there. I've said some stupid things. I still sometimes say some stupid things, but
But yes, that was my story. Like, yeah, his Mickey Mantle baseball that was signed by Mickey Mantle. Sold it, bought my ring, and 2 months later, Mickey Mantle passed away.
oh man, that's
Yeah,
crazy.
can you imagine how much that baseball was worth?
Man.
Yeah, it was not. Wow.
I
Ah.
don't even know what to say to that.
No, she's quiet. I shocked her.
I guess I didn't hear him say he sold that baseball, but
Yeah,
oh my goodness.
yeah, to get
Okay.
my engagement ring. I
All right.
know. I know.
It's okay. You guys are happily married
Yes.
and you've acknowledged you said something stupid in the moment
Yep.
and
Yep.
all the things.
And I still am thinking about it sometimes.
Mhm. That's funny.
Oh, it's funny now but back then I was like, "Oh, he really did love me for selling that Mickey Mantle
Mhm.
baseball." Anyways, what about you?
So my story's funny. Um so I got engaged the weekend of Thanksgiving slash my birthday falls sometimes on Thanksgiving.
Mhm.
And my older sister had gotten engaged like a week before I did.
Okay.
And bless Jason's
Oh,
heart, I was so
wow.
mad. I was like, "Oh, we've been dating longer than they have, and she got engaged before me. What is like?" I was just like, "Why can you not make up your mind? Come on,
Oh
man."
my
His
god.
mind was made up.
Yeah,
He
he
had a
was
plan.
ready. Wait, your parents had to pay for 2 weddings that year?
Well, my parents gave a little bit
Okay.
towards the
So
weddings, but
that's
we mostly paid for it ourselves.
yeah,
Um,
that's
or
a
we had
lot in 1 year.
yeah.
Okay.
So, my so the week So my sister's engaged, and then there's this week in between her engagement and my engagement. And so, sorry, that was a weird sound that came out of my mouth. That wasn't even a burp. What?
We're dealing with weird sounds tonight. We're dealing with the funky recording machine, this motorcycle that keeps going by, and
then all of a sudden I'm like, ah.
You know the mic, the camera's on you, right?
Whatever, I don't care at this point.
I know
this is a bizarre episode.
Okay, 5 minutes here.
Okay. So let me see if I can get this out. So my parents live kind of in the country-ish area, and they have a gorgeous pond in the front and big land, a lot of big land. Oh my goodness. It's gonna be a night. They have some land, and then there's this pretty little wooded area, and then back behind it is this open space, and the sunsets at my parents' house are phenomenal. You just can't beat them.
Yeah.
So my sister and her fiance are like, hey, let's go for a walk. And so the four of us go out and we go for a walk. Well, we're admiring the sunset and the moon has started, all these things.
Yeah.
Kind of like a romantic.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I was like, oh, I know what's happening. Because I started to see my sister and my brother-in-law distance themselves from us. And I was like, oh, I think he's going to propose. This is what I'm thinking in my head. And so at one point, I still give him a hard time over this. At one point, Jason, we're walking and he stops and he bends down. I'm freaking out and suddenly he ties his shoe. His shoe. And I was like, what are you doing? He's like, oh, my shoe is untied. And he's smirking at me. I'm like, no, you didn't. You did not just set up this amazing scenery.
Yeah.
Slow down. Start talking about how much you love me and can't wait to spend your life with me. And you bend down to tie your shoe. No. He's like, what? My shoe needed to be tied. I'm like, you're rude. So he was laughing and smirking because in his mind, he wanted to throw me off the scent.
Yeah.
Because I kept nagging him of you need to propose to me. This is I'm very go-getter, get it, come on.
You go-getter?
So he did not propose that night. Fast forward 3 days later, my sister and I were both working at the same place. We worked at a Lifeway Christian bookstore.
Yeah.
And she picks me up. And because we were sharing a car. So when she picked me up, as I'm leaving and closing the store, I come out and she's got a video camera on me. I'm like, what is this?
What are you doing?
And she's like, hey, here's a clue. And I was like, a clue? Now you have to understand. I'm like, okay, at this point, I'm not believing anything's going to happen. Because he fooled me once. Fooled me twice. Shame it. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anyway, so I read this clue and I was like, oh, and it was go to the place where we love to have crab rangoon. And I was like it was a hint clue scavenger hunt. I'm like, oh, he wants me to go to my favorite, our favorite Chinese restaurant where we would go and have crab rangoon. So I went there and I go in there and I was so confused on what was happening that I didn't hear it. But I walk into the restaurant and the manager of the restaurant comes out with a bouquet of flowers.
Wow.
And another clue. But as he's handing me the clue, I didn't know it at the time. But when I watched the video, I'm like, oh, he says, you get engaged? You get engaged? I'm like, huh? I don't know what you're saying.
Yeah.
But he's saying, are you getting engaged?
Yeah.
But I didn't know.
Yeah.
And so it was 10 clues, and it was all to our
10 clues?
Yes. It was
oh my gosh.
It was to our favorite dates or my favorite bookstore and Or
Oh.
I'm trying to remember. Oh, I really liked this particular drink from a restaurant, and so he had me go there, and he paid for my drink, and I got
Yeah.
my drink. So different stuff like that, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And then the last clue was heading to my house, but at this
Yeah.
point I'm blindfolded, and I
Ah.
don't know I'm going to my house.
Yeah.
And so I'm blindfolded, and I don't know why, but at some point on this scavenger hunt, I'm thinking to myself, "Oh my goodness, Jason is going to be dressed up like Santa Claus, and I'm going to get to sit on Santa's lap." Because at this point in my life, I, for some reason, was so fixated on getting to sit on. I've never sat on Santa's lap.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know why I really wanted to do that at that point. I'm like, I've never sat on his lap, and I think Jason's gonna be dressed up like Santa, and it's gonna be my birthday gift, and I'm gonna get to sit on Santa's lap. I'm so excited. And my sister, I'm blindfolded, and you can just hear like her trying so hard not to laugh because obviously she knows what's happening at the end of
Yeah.
this. I get to my parents' house, and I heard my youngest sister, and they were not supposed to be in town. They were supposed to be back home.
Oh, okay.
And I was like, Lydia? I'm blindfolded. I'm like, why is Lydia here?
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden I hear, shh, shh, shh. I'm like,
Something's
what is
happening.
happening? So then my sister took me into the sunroom, which is just this sweet, special room.
Yeah.
Because in the sunroom, one wall is just giant windows, and you
Yeah.
see the lake and the
I
lights
want to
and
go to your parents' house.
all of that. So I'm
Sounds
in the
like fun.
sunroom,
Yeah.
and Megan leaves, and then all of a sudden I hear, "Hey, I'll take it from here." And I was like, "Oh, that's Jason." And then he plays our favorite song.
Yeah.
I'm still blindfolded. He's like, "Let's dance." I'm like, "I'm gonna dance blindfolded."
Blindfolded,
Okay.
right?
He's like, "Just trust me." So we're dancing
Mm-hmm.
to one of my favorite songs, and then he gets down on one knee and he says, "You can take your blindfold off." And I took my blindfold off, and he is down on one knee,
Yeah.
and he has a Cinderella glass slipper, and in the glass slipper is the diamond ring,
Oh.
and proposed.
Oh my
I was like, ah! I was so excited.
Wow.
It was not Santa Claus.
Hey,
So-
you had a better reaction than I did, okay?
This is true. I did not say that's small. It was sweet. It's on video too. I'm sure at
Aw.
some point I should share a clip on our Facebook
Yeah.
page if they
Yeah,
want to
you
see it and make
should.
fun of me for
Yeah.
thinking the whole time I'm going to sit on Santa's lap. So that's how
hilarious.
Jason proposed.
Aw.
I actually still have the little clues that he wrote in my. I have like a bin. It's my Jason bin
Yeah.
from when we started dating to engaged. It's everything like our first. I'm like, why did I keep our first ice cream wrapper? Like, at Dairy Queen, how they have that
cute.
paper. Like, this is our
Yeah.
first ice cream cone we shared.
Oh my.
Like, what in the world? But Jason has the same. He has a box too. I didn't know it until we got married. I was like, what's this? He's like, oh, this is all like the first things we did together. I'm like, I have one too.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Aw.
Anyway,
Cute.
okay. So
That's
now that
cool.
we've talked about the proposal
Mhm.
and answered a few of those questions, tell me, how would you describe your engagement period being difficult and hard? Like what was hard, and then share like what was good.
So I think it was really difficult to plan our wedding out of state.
Yeah.
And I shared that my parents were very strict. They were still strict during my engagement. And you know, trying to mesh two cultures together when you're planning a wedding was difficult. And there were times where I fought with my mom. I wanted specific colors. No, you can't do those colors. That's bad luck. Just stuff like that.
Mm.
You need to have a lot of attendance. Well, I didn't want, it was kind of a battle between my mom and I, really, because she wanted certain things. I
Mm.
didn't want to do certain things. And then Chad was frustrated, um,
Mm.
because he I wasn't allowed to go fly out there and go see him,
Mhm.
even though we were engaged, like, he's like, "You're old enough. You're an adult. You can get on a plane, you can do whatever you want." And of course, I am struggling because I want to do what my future husband wants me to do, but then I'm also trying to honor my parents.
Mhm.
So it's really difficult to plan a wedding. And even like registering for stuff. Okay, dating myself again, Kathy. So how now when you register for stuff, baby weddings, you can go around, you have that
Click the
scanner,
gun. Yeah.
click, click. Not me. It was here's this piece of paper, here's a pencil, fill out everything that you want. Like I had to write the description down and the SKU number of
Mm.
everything that I wanted. But here's the thing, I had to do a lot of that by myself. There was some times where there was probably one time because we registered at several places where there was one place where Chad went with me. But the other times I just registered myself. And a lot of the times it was my mom that was with me. And then again, we would kind of get into these tiffles like, you need to register for that. Oh, I don't really want no, you need to. So, again, those types of things. Ordering the invitations.
Mm.
Again, it wasn't like we had a cell phone or anything.
Yeah.
It was, well, I don't even know how. I think I might have sent him the link of
Mhm.
where some of the invitations that I really liked. And then, like, hey, what do you think about this? What do you think about that? That's how we had to choose. And then they messed up the invitations. Tuxedos were a nightmare. So the tuxedo place that we chose, they had one in Houston, they had one out in Phoenix. So everybody got measured out in Phoenix because it was his brothers, my middle brother-in-law was his best man, and then my youngest brother-in-law was a groomsman, and then he had several guys. He had two guys, three guys living here, that lived here in Houston. So the guys that were living here got measured. But Chad and his brothers and his dad got measured out there in Phoenix. So can imagine when we come out here, they put everything in the system. Chad's tuxedo was way too big when he got here. He got here like maybe 4 days before we got married. Tuxedo was too big. And so they had to adjust that. And so that was really, really challenging. And then even like Chad had to find was looking at apartments and he had to find an apartment without me there,
Mm.
just kind of like, well, it's a nice apartment. It looks like this. It's not like he could send me pictures of
Mhm.
it because again, I'm dating myself. When you still have the cameras, you take pictures and you bring the film to be developed.
Mhm.
So there was just no way that he could do that.
I had like 2 years where that was the case, and after that, I had the instant
The Polaroid?
yeah, cameras.
Yeah. No. No. Mm-mm. So that was really challenging.
Mm.
It was really challenging during our engagement. And there were times where it was rough. Like we would fight because especially when it came to and like my parents not letting me come out
Mhm.
there and I was just really torn about what I was supposed to do, you know. But again, we got through it,
Mhm.
you know. Anyways, what about you, Miss Kathy?
What was hard for our engagement? I would definitely say, once he was living in the same, town that I was in when
Mm,
we were engaged, that the struggles of temptation.
mm, mm,
And so I would definitely say our struggles during our engagement was, fighting for the protection and purity of our engagement.
mm.
Um, there were definitely some things looking back, I'm like, "Oh, the Lord was kind."
Yeah,
Like, he protected us,
yeah,
um,
yeah.
like, to the point where, like my best friend was my roommate for part of my engagement.
Mm,
And there were times where like if she was not there, like it would have not ended well, I don't think.
yeah.
Because we're both passionate physical people.
Yeah.
Um and then I actually towards the end of my engagement, I ended up having to move back home
Mm,
and live with my family, so that there was a lot more people around.
yeah. Gotcha.
So for me, I would definitely say that the sexual tension during
Mm,
our engagement was incredibly difficult.
mm,
And because of that, it caused a lot of fights.
yeah.
Like like I think back on some of the things I said to Jason, like, you're so mean, Kathy. I'd be like, you need to be stronger than this, and you need to stop, and you need to stop us. You need to
Yeah.
lead. And meanwhile, I might have been wearing something that I knew that would make, cause him to struggle. And
Yeah.
I'm like, like
Yeah.
there was lots of things that we did not handle well in our engagement.
Gotcha.
But by God's grace and his
Mm,
kindness, we had men and women in our lives speaking truth to us
mm-hmm.
and telling us, "Hey, I think y'all need to move your wedding date up,
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
protect that part of your
Yeah.
lives."
Yeah.
So I'm thankful for those people who did speak into our lives.
Mm,
But yeah, that was definitely the hardest part
yeah.
of our engagement.
I can imagine.
Um, what is something? What was something great about your engagement period?
I think even though it was difficult, I think I already knew that I wanted to spend the rest of my life with
Mm-hmm.
him. And in a sense, even though it was difficult to be apart from him, I think that that helped us get stronger in
In your
our
relationship.
relationship because we were apart. We were
Mm-hmm.
still able
Mm-hmm.
to be um, in love with each other, not like be like, oh, let's call this engagement off. Even though there was periods where it was a little bit rough,
Mm-hmm.
um, we got through the rough patches
Mm-hmm.
and we still married each other. And so I think that the time apart helped us grow.
Appreciate each
Yes.
other more, and
Yes.
I can see
Appreciate
that.
each other, love each other more. And so I think that that was one of the greatest things I feel like during our engagement was that we did grow closer even though we were apart.
That's awesome.
Yeah. What about you guys?
Um, I would definitely say that for me, this isn't necessarily like about Jason and me per se,
Mhm.
but I was thankful that during my engagement period, and I won't go into details, but my family was going through a really tough season. And at times it just felt like I was kind of alone in the engagement season,
Mm.
which is sad because, you want your mom there and
Yeah.
you want sisters. But in God's providence and by his kindness, my older sister and I were both engaged.
Yeah.
So we did everything together. Like we planned our weddings together.
Mm.
Ironically, our wedding colors were pretty much the same colors. And
Oh,
we
wow.
were like, I asked, like, are you okay? And she's like, yes, are you? And
Yeah.
so we helped celebrate each other and plan each other's weddings. And
You got married in June. When did she get married?
May.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
Our weddings were 3 weeks
Oh
apart.
my gosh. Wow.
So we even got to have our bridal showers together.
Oh,
So
fun.
we got
Okay.
to do that together.
Yeah.
And that really um deepened our relationship, and we have a special bond
Mm.
because some of it is our family was going through a really hard season.
Mhm.
There's a lot of pain, a lot of hurt, a lot
Mhm.
of felt like abandonment from
Mhm.
some family members,
Mhm.
but she and I were there for each other and helped each other, and it was an incredible blessing to have her
Oh,
there.
yeah.
And we cried together, we prayed together. So for me, I think one of the blessings that came out of my engagement
Mhm.
period was the relationship of my older sister and I, and how that
Oh,
bond happened.
okay.
So, and then I would also say that I think I started to learn slowly, and
Mm.
this is because my grandma Dorothy was living at the time, and she and I shared a room. Actually, we were roommates.
Oh, now that's cool.
Yeah.
Mhm.
She would tell me in the evenings, we would talk, and she'd catch up and ask how things were going for
Mhm.
Jason and me. And she would remind me, like, remember, sweetheart, he is the spiritual leader of your home. Well, soon to be.
Mhm.
And so you need to, because I'm a little bit more of a domineering type woman.
Mhm. Mhm.
And so, like, I would push back, and she's like, I know you're not married yet, but soon you're going to be married. And you need to learn how to do this together and not
Mm.
your way or the highway.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
I would definitely say towards the very end of our engagement, I was slowly learning to submit to him in a
Mm.
way that was honoring to the Lord.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
anyway,
Oh, very cool. Okay.
all right. Well, you've talked a little bit about this, but you can add more if you would like. Did you and Chad fight a lot during your engagement?
Mm.
What would you say? What was the thing that really made you butt heads a lot?
Um, Me flying out to Phoenix
Mm,
to see him. It that in the sense was even while we were dating, um, it was very hard for Chad at times to understand why my parents were as strict as they were.
mm,
And so when we were engaged, he was like, "We're about to be married. Like, you know, we're about to be one. And, you're not always going to do what your parents are going to ask you to do because, we're going to be married." And so that was cause sometimes for us to fight was, my parents,
mm,
me trying to honor my parents, even though I knew I really needed to go fly out to Phoenix.
mm,
And that was really difficult. And then even like my parents, when Chad asked permission to marry me, he wrote my dad a letter. And of course, my parents, typical Asian parents, well, she's not done with school yet. She needs to finish school first. And I didn't think my parents would ever say yes because there was a point where I was like, well, I'm going to have to make a decision here. Like, either I'm going to try and honor my parents or, maybe we'll
mhm,
elope. I don't know. Um, But my parents finally relented, but in some sense, there was still a little bit of that control
mhm.
there that was kinda difficult sometimes,
And
being
keep
in the culture.
looking, panicking
Yes.
that this button is
No, it's
buzzing.
good because 'cause I've been watching it too. It was the culture clash that sometimes would cause us to fight about
Mm,
things, but what
yeah.
about you guys?
For me, I would say that the sexual tension was
Mm,
really hard.
yeah.
I would also say that what was hard for me was I'm older than Jason by 2 years. Not that
Mhm.
that is a big deal, but
Right.
I like real talk. At times, I felt like I was more mature and more the leader and more like, I had these expectations
Yeah. Mhm.
and I never communicated those expectations to him. And so I'd be mad because you aren't leading us in this way. And
Yeah.
so that was another big one. And another one was stupid, petty stuff. Jason's got strong opinions as well,
Yeah.
especially when it comes to like decorating. I know that sounds bizarre.
What?
Yes.
Okay, I haven't seen this side of Jason. Okay.
And so when we were registering, we were literally our biggest fight was over shower curtains. My grandma was with us
Are you
too.
kidding
I'm
me?
not kidding.
Oh my gosh.
He was like, "Wait, we're gonna have 2 shower curtains?" I'm like, "Yes, you have to have the liner that goes in the shower, and then you have the pretty cotton that goes on the outside for the decor." He's like, "That's insane. I grew up with one shower curtain, which I'm pretty sure is not accurate. If you ask his mom, I'm pretty sure he had two. I'm like, you're literally going to argue with me on how many shower curtains to have in our shower? We're going to have two. He's like, no, we're having one. That's ridiculous. I'm like, no. So, like, for like 15 minutes, we were at Bed Bath & Beyond fighting over a stupid shower curtain. And then we also were fighting over towels.
Oh my gosh.
And finally, my grandma's like, come here, sweetheart. I'm like, yes, Grandma. This is Grandma Dorothy.
Yeah.
She's like, I think y'all need to be done registering today. And I think y'all need to take a break from this. And I was like, what? So we took a break. And then later laugh about it now. Like, I can't believe we got in a fight over a shower curtain. What in the world? Anyway, so
at least you could have scanned. At least you got the scan.
We did have the scanner. We sure did.
I didn't.
Did you and Chad have premarital counseling?
I have to think. Yes, we did. Kind of, because it was hard again because
Right,
we
because you
were
were living in two
separate
different
states. So his best friend married us, but yes, we did do some counseling. Not as much as I wanted to,
Yeah.
just because it was difficult. And again, it was not back in the day where we could like do FaceTime and talk and all that stuff. It was like phone call. When Chad was in town, that was when we would have our counseling sessions with his friend.
Okay.
But yes, we did. We did whenever he came into town.
Okay.
Yeah. But what about you guys?
So yes, Jason and I, my dad married us. So my
Okay.
dad did our counseling, which was fine until we got to the section about sex. He's like, so because he would assign homework for us and we'd have to
Yeah.
read. We did a book. I think it was called Before Sinners Say I Do. And so that particular chapter was all about sexual intimacy in your marriage.
Yeah.
So we read it and we came to his office and he's like, do y'all have any questions about this chapter? And I'm like, no, I'm not talking to my dad about having sex with my husband.
Right.
And just like, no, I'm good.
Yeah. Awkward.
I'm good. I don't have any questions.
That would be awkward.
We did. We had great. We did have some good counseling.
Okay.
But
Okay.
that particular session stands out to me just because it was short
and awkward.
Yes. Okay, so the last question I have for you about your engagement period is, what was it like planning for your wedding? You've shared a little bit.
You know, again, it was difficult to plan a wedding living in two different states. But you know, when it came together, because I did a mixture of the Filipino culture
Okay.
and American culture. So in the Filipino culture, and one of the things that I had to explain to my parents when we first got engaged, because my mom said, so, what is Chad's parents, something about Chad's parents paying for stuff? And I was like, Mom, in the United States, the bride's side of the family, the bride's parents pay for a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
So they were taken aback a little bit because in their culture, the groom's parents pay for everything. So that was a little bit of a culture shock for them. They didn't understand that. But they were gracious about it. I mean, and Chad's parents did like help out with some things. But you know, so in my culture, the parents give the bride away. So both my parents walked me down the aisle.
Okay.
And then in the Filipino culture, you have what's called principal sponsors. They're like married couples that are like your counselors. They come in, you know, like they're there to counsel you and support you as a married couple. And I picked 3 couples that were my principal sponsors. So that was part of my wedding.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. And we did have the traditional um American wedding, but I put those 2 things in my wedding because that was
Okay.
part of my culture.
Okay.
Yeah. But what about you? What about planning? You kind of shared yours as well.
Yes, I would say that my my family was in a really hard season. We had family members that were clinically depressed,
Mhm.
some suicidal,
Right.
and as a result of that, my mom was really busy
Yeah.
taking care of them,
Yeah.
and taking care of
Mm.
herself.
Mhm.
That she was not as hands on and part of things that you in the American culture, like you said,
Yeah.
mm, which was really hard.
Yeah.
She and I have talked about this because that aspect of my wedding was really hard and made
Mm.
me sad,
Yeah.
which ended up causing like a rift from my mom and I. But she and I ended up, I would say, a few months after my husband and I were married, he was like, "You need to talk to your mom." So she and
Yeah.
I had a long talk,
Mhm.
um, repented of sin, asked for forgiveness, um, and those types of things.
Mhm.
So, in that regards, it was hard. I will never forget. I would say probably 3 months before our wedding,
Mhm.
I sat down with my mother in law and my mom and said, "This is what we would like to do for um, the wedding.
Yeah.
Um, I don't know how we do this."
Yeah.
And so my mother-in-law's like, "Well, we'll take care of the reception or the rehearsal."
Mhm.
And my mom's like, "And we'll take care of the wedding reception."
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure it was 3 weeks before. Nothing had been done,
Mhm.
for the wedding. And I know a lot of it was because my mom was working with one of my siblings who was suicidal and not in a
Mhm.
good place.
Mhm.
And so I told my best friend, Melody,
Yeah.
I'm like, "Nothing's planned. I don't know what to do.
Yeah.
Like, the wedding's in 3 weeks."
Yeah.
And then she called my mother-in-law, and, my mother-in-law and my grandma came down, and we hit the ground running and planned the wedding, and we did say that as soon as mom is able to, and she steps in, we're gonna back away because this is her thing that she wanted to
Yeah.
do.
Yeah.
Um, but that never happened, and
Yeah.
so, that was hard.
Mm.
Um, but I'm thankful for my grandma and my mother-in-law, and then there were 3 ladies at our church who just who knew enough to know, like, these girls, my sister and me, were hurting, and so we need to come alongside them and help them,
Mm.
and so they helped. One of the ladies made all my bridesmaid dresses. One of the ladies is an incredible interior designer, and she decorated, along with my mother-in-law's help, who's also an incredible decorator, helped decorate my wedding. My in-laws paid for our reception.
Wow.
They were very generous and kind. Um, so it was hard planning
Yeah.
for my wedding, and there was a lot of friction with my dad and I about it because there were things I wanted to do, and he was like, "You will not do that. That's gonna
Oh.
hurt your mom." And it was like, I'm not wanting to hurt my mom, but I
Mm.
want to honor this person who, you know.
Mm.
So that was a tough season, um, but
That's hard.
it was hard. It was really hard.
Mm.
Like my sister and I were there for each other for our trying on the dresses, and
Mm.
usually it's like your mom and your sisters,
Yeah.
but it was just us. Um,
Yeah.
so it's a difficult season, and it took a
Okay.
few years to like move past and heal from.
Yeah.
And not to say that there are sometimes moments where there's that sting of that, like I wish that would have been different.
Yeah.
But had it been different, I don't know if my older sister and I would have the relationship that we have
Mhm. Mhm.
because we were like each other's person, if
Yeah.
that makes sense.
Yeah. So she had to plan her wedding. You
Hmm.
guys basically helped plan each other's weddings.
Pretty much, yeah.
Wow.
And, the other aspect of that is because of how difficult it was and how
Mm.
things happened with my mom and me during the wedding season,
Mhm.
it forced my mom and I to have a really hard conversation on
Mhm.
both sides
Yeah.
where we were like, we had never done this before, where we
Mm.
actually had real talk and said, like, this hurt. And same on her end, and we cried and forgave one another
Mhm.
and moved past it,
Yeah.
um, for the most part. I
Yeah.
mean, you know this with anything in life when you've been hurt and been abandoned,
Mhm.
that pain doesn't always go away, that
Yeah.
there's always going to be, like, a reminder of, "Oh, that was a hard season."
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
anyway, all that it was like scars. It's like scars on your soul or whatever you wanna
Yeah.
say, but
Yeah. Yeah.
all of that to say,
Yeah.
I'm thankful for the people who were, there to
Mhm.
encourage me and to be part of it and to help,
Yeah.
um, me make decisions and all of those things, so,
Yeah.
anyway,
Yeah.
it was a great season.
Yeah.
Definitely love being married more than I do being engaged.
Yeah. Me too.
Just hit my
Me
teeth on this
too.
stupid microphone again. Tell you what,
I switched it over here, so it wasn't on you. Maybe it wasn't
good,
on you.
because it was like,
Oh
like
my
right in.
goodness.
Anyway,
Oh.
well, this was fun. It was fun getting
Yeah.
to hear a lot more of your
I
engagement
really had
story.
to think back. And then I realized, man, I am old when I'm dating myself with things that I had to do compared to what I got to use
Mhm.
to prepare for a wedding.
Let's get that
Ooh,
paper and pencil and
I
write down what we want for our
know.
wedding.
And this is seriously, it took
I cannot imagine.
it took several hours to
Nope.
register at a place. Whereas now it's like when we had Austin, that's when they first came out with the scanners. Chad's like, this is so cool. And he's like scanning 3 or 4 things. I'm like, what are you doing? The baby doesn't need 3 or 4 things of that. He's like, so what? Click, click, click.
That was, I mean, Jason did that. He's just like, this is amazing. You get to
Yeah.
aim and shoot. I'm like, oh my goodness. Anyway,
Anyways.
well, thank you all for being with us this evening
Yeah.
and hearing our stories and how our spouses proposed to us and what
Yeah.
it was like being engaged and what God taught
Mhm.
us. And
Mhm.
we are thankful that you spent part of your evening to listen to that. And we
Yeah.
hope you come back next week
Yes.
because we are going to be talking about what our first year of marriage was like.
Ooh. Again, I
Yes.
got to get on the thinking here.
So, thank you all for joining us this evening.
Yes.
I'm Cathy,
I'm Ellen.
and we will talk to you later.
All right. Bye, ladies.